All right, we're going to start right away. So the first thing that I would like you to do, please, oops, try that again. Come on. There you go. First thing I'd like you to do is please start up XAMPP. All right. We should be able to literally click and hook onto MySQL Workbench like that. All right. If everything works. Now, when we go through this, if you get weird errors, it's to be expected. I know that sounds weird, but it's to be expected. Now, my guess is when yours comes up, you probably don't have Apache and MySQL running. Technically, we probably don't need Apache, but we're going to click for the Apache and we're going to click for MySQL. So click both of those right there. So yours right now by the start right here, click on there and click on there. I can't really make that any bigger. It doesn't go any bigger than that. Okay. Now, your port may be different. Your port may be like mine, 3306. It doesn't matter if yours is the same or not. All right. That said, remember that port number. If you have to, just leave it. You have to leave this up and running, but just minimize your screen right now. But you want the port number for MySQL, not the one for Apache. All right. So let's minimize this and let's start up MySQL Workbench, the thing that we downloaded yesterday. And that should come up, if everything works, and look like this. Okay? Now, I've already reset mine, so mine might be a little bit different than yours. If it is, don't worry about it. I'm going to assume when we set this up, unless you did this otherwise, if you remember when we set up working with MySQL, we logged in as root, we had no password because I said that'd be the easiest for everybody. So I'm assuming you have that. The point is, as we go through this process, it's going to ask you for a password. So if you don't have any, just basically hit the OK or the enter or whatever that is, okay? All right, you should see over here now, you've got a plus sign right to the right of where it says MySQL connections. You want to click that plus sign, and that should bring this up right here. Now, you want to give this a name. I just called mine connection 1. It doesn't really matter. Don't put a blank space in it, so I just typed in connection 1 like that. You should be able to leave this and all this. This has to be the exact same thing as the port number, and it may have defaulted to that anyway. If it did, good. And if it didn't, up here where it says port, that port number, so if you have to, bring this back up again. So notice mine's 3306 here, and mine's 3306 here. All right, you see what I'm talking? Everybody see what I'm talking about? All right. So then I'm not going to click this because I've already got it. Well, I can make a connection too, but I don't know if that would hurt to have a lot of different connections or not. Click the button for password that says store in vault. Just click the button, and it asks you for a password. If you have none, just click OK. All right, and I'm going to click cancel now. Everybody go through that? We're going to know real quick whether or not this worked. How's that? All right, then go, it should bring you back to here after you click OK, and then just click on here where it says root. Now, you might get this thing about connection warning, etc., because I got the same thing. And I was reading a bunch of these. I watched a bunch of videos. The bad thing is, and I'm saying this, I really hope I don't sound prejudiced because I don't mean to be, but you watch videos and the majority of them are by people whose English is not their first language, and they're talking fast. I actually watched one of the best ones was not in English. I think it was in Hindu. But the reason that it was helpful was I got to watch the steps the guy went through because he did it nice and slow. All right, so I don't want to show that message again, and I'm just going to click continue anyway. And if it comes up and it looks like this, you're in. Did anybody's not work? We can check if you remember, and you can make this bigger by holding down on control and clicking your flywheel here, or your mouse wheel. Now, When we run this, I don't remember how big this is, but it's probably not going to be, our output's probably not going to be real big. And I don't think you can control the size of that. All right. But if I come in here now, look, I can type in, as an example, show tables. Just something like that. Put a semicolon in there. Now, to run this, you just click the lightning bolt that's right there. You see that lightning bolt? It's the third icon. Click there. And it's not showing me any tables. It says error, oh, no database selected. Well, that would make sense. Then let's change it from show tables to show databases. All right, like that. And then again, click the lightning bolt, and there's my databases. All right. Again, there may be a way to make this bigger. I don't know what it is. Be honest with you, I don't care what it is. All right. But you may want to investigate that on your own. All right. Now, when you look over on the side here, this is going to have all of our stuff. Now, it does not appear to me, and I could be wrong, I didn't go through everything that's in here. Notice there's a dashboard and a bunch of other stuff. Okay. Couple things to note. First of all, if you look on the bottom of your screen, it logs everything you've done. And it also shows you the status. So that show tables didn't work, and you notice there's the red X by it, or the red circle with a white X inside of it. The reason that that can be important is, if nothing else, you should be able to go back later if you tried something, you know, and you want to go back and see if it worked or it didn't work or whatever. But again, like I said, it logs everything. It also gives you error codes. So as you can see in the message, that was my error code. How could it show me a table if I didn't have a database active? All right. So what I'd like to do, and I'm going to bring this up, you've got two choices here. You can either bring this up yourselves or you can do some typing, and it's whatever you want to do. But yesterday in the MySQL thing that I gave you, remember there was a thing called MySQL cheat sheet. All right. And this was something that Mr. Traversy actually created. And I'd like us to go through this just because I actually think it's going to help us get back into the swing of things. All right. The first thing, just so you know, it says this is probably where MySQL is located on your machine. You shouldn't have to care. We shouldn't have had to add it to our path. None of that stuff was important. All right. Now, this thing right here, remember, you may or may not remember this. You don't have to do this, but I want to show you three different things. You now know how to get into MySQL Workbench. All right. Remember, if you wanted to, I don't know why you would, but if you wanted to, you could come over here and type in shell, or click the shell button that's right here. And that brings up MySQL in a shell. So I can say MySQL -u root and hit enter. Now I'm in there the same way. All right, so I'm in there twice now. That's not a good thing. So I'm going to exit from there. And I have to exit twice. Finally, if you go under the admin, you don't have to do this. But if you go in under the admin that's for MySQL, you may or may not remember that brings up phpMyAdmin. The reason I'm telling you this is we're only going to spend about a few days talking about MySQL. Then we're going to go into MongoDB. All right, we're going to be getting into Node too. All right, if not at the end of this week, then early next week. We're actually going to start building some projects next week. But the point is, you now know three different ways that you can get into working with this. I would recommend never using the shell because it's a pain in the butt to do stuff like that. If you don't agree and you like using the shell, then use the shell. All right. All right. And whether or not you use phpMyAdmin, again, is a matter of personal preference. So I'm going to just close that. I'm going to come back to here. But I'm going to bring up, did I bring it up already? Yes. So in that cheat sheet, couple things. First of all, if you want to go in and add a brand new user. So in other words, right now you're in there as root, which is totally fine if you're the only person who's ever going to be using this. And having no password is fine. But I wanted to show you, because this is the syntax. So if, you know, again, none of those words have to be capitalized. But by default, what most people do is they capitalize keywords. So let's say Angie wanted to create a new user called Angie. She'd type in there, create user, single quote Angie, single quote, @ single quote, localhost, single quote, identified by, and then in single quotes, her password. All right, I'm sure that probably makes sense to you. All right. Now, once you do that, it sets you up with some default permissions. You cannot do everything. All right. It's just because it's trying to what if I accidentally created a new user and gave them a different name? Somebody found out about it or whatever. They could do some bad stuff possibly. So you do this, and that basically says you can do anything. All right. You're for lack of better words, you're root. All right. But what happens is you have to run this command then, because the privileges is basically a table that says what privileges you have. And by flushing it, it removes the original privileges you were given, and it restores the ones that you just gave with the grant statement. Does that make sense to everybody? So there's a grant, and there actually is a revoke as well. So let's say that Angie had given me a bunch of privileges. She's, geez, he shouldn't be able to create stuff, just read, for example. Then she could revoke privileges that she gave me. All right, you can show the grants as they say right there. I don't know if you say, you can try this if you want. We can try it, but so if I come in here and say show grants for, which is another keyword, root, and I run it. All right, it says there is no grant defined for user root on host. All right. But if I did go in and create a bunch of stuff, it would show that. All right. The other thing I want to mention, and it's not a big thing, I already showed you. So if I come in here, and we're going to do this in a bit, but let's just say we want to do create database hello. All right. So let's just say I wanted to do that. I'm put a semicolon there. I already told you that you can hit the button right here, which is true. I believe you can also do a control enter. So if that, for some reason, that's easier for you, you can do that. Now, if you've only got a single line here like this, I believe if I do a control L, it cleared my screen. But I think if you've got multiple lines, it doesn't clear the screen. It just clears that line. All right. So now if I come in and I do my show databases, amongst the other ones there, it should show hello. And you can see that it does. All right. You know as well as I do, or you should hopefully, if I don't want that anymore, I can do drop database and give it hello. All right. And again, control enter, and now it should be dropped. So if I do a control L and I do my show databases again, and control enter, show database says, and control enter, now hello is not there. That shouldn't be any surprise to anybody. All right. But I want to just keep going in here. So you could drop a user, exit is fine. So we already looked at the show databases. Let's go through his examples. We're not going to drop this, but let's do create database Acme. We're just going to run through his example, okay? So I'm going to do a create database Acme. By and large, other than keywords, everything else is all in lowercase. If you decide, well, I want my database names to have an uppercase, for their title or whatever, I mean, it doesn't hurt to do that either. All right, so I've done that. I can see down here when it says 1 row is affected, it worked. So again, I can come down here now and do a show databases. And I don't know why I keep leaving the E off, or the S off on the end, but I do. And there's Acme. All right. Again, I realize this is nothing new. So create table. You may or may not remember this. Let's take a look at this. And again, if you don't want to type, bring that file up and then copy it. All right, because I'm about to copy all of this. But before we do, let's take a quick look at this, if you would, everybody. So right now, guess what? If I do this, it ain't going to work. You may or may not remember this, But right now, I don't have an active database. So I have to say use Acme. Now it's an active database. Now I can go in and add tables, add views, add whatever. So you've got to activate the current, make that database the current database, and that's what we did right there. All right? So let's look at this, because there's two ways that you can do this. Okay, this is the way that Traversy did it. If I did not want to do it like this, I could have taken this thing that says primary key and I could have put it up here. So I could have said int id int auto increment primary key. Then I wouldn't have needed the ID in parens. But I think I mentioned this to you yesterday, and I'm saying it again. Let's assume that I have a concatenated primary key. So it's both users and email, let's say. Or I'm sorry, it's both ID and email. So it's both of those. Then I have to do it like this on the bottom. All right. You'll notice when you look in here, virtually everything is a varchar, meaning variable character length. I think he made the names way too big. Personally, I would have taken this, and I think 25 is a decent size. I don't think there's many people that have a first name or a last name more than 25 characters. I would have also taken the email and made that 75, because some people have god-awful emails. All right, then there's a password. Now, one thing about the password, and we'll talk about this, just not right now, is that what you can do is when you put it into a database, you can basically hash it. So in other words, you encrypt the password. Because if I put my password in there and it happens to be hello123, anyone can see it. All right, that's not typically what you're going to want. The location that he uses here, it's basically, I think it's the city that they're in. Again, 100 seems pretty big. The department, 100 again seems pretty big. This is their Boolean value. So if isAdmin is set to 0, they're not an administrator. If isAdmin is set to 1, they are an administrator. All that makes sense? All right. And this is a date time field, which does kind of like now that we looked at in JavaScript. It gives you the current date and it gives you the current time. All right. So again, I'm going to highlight all of this. I tried it just for the heck of it. It is legal to actually put this all on one line as long as you separate it, but it doesn't wrap. So if I do it like this, oops, not there. That was the same command I just had. Thought I copied it, but I guess I didn't. All right, so there's that. Again, you can see the words that are keywords in there just by taking a quick look, and I've done a pretty decent job, I think, of going in there. Now, password is also a keyword, but you don't have to worry about it. All right, it worked fine. Okay, so I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to, again, just do my Control-Enter. And it says down here, 0 rows affected. All right. But now I can come in, and again, if I do a Control-L in here, so if I come in here and do a Control-L, see how it doesn't remove everything, it just removes the current line? There probably is a way to remove all lines. I've never investigated it here. All right, but now if I come in and I do a Show Tables, and I do my Control-Enter, now it shows users. Now, you know this as well as I do. If I do a select star from users right now, it's not going to show anything because I haven't put any records in yet. Does all that make sense? All right. So, like I said, I'm just going to be bopping back and forth here and looking at his stuff. So we could drop that table now, drop table name, and you may or may not remember this from last year. If you do select, if you do insert, if you do update, if you do delete, those are known as data manipulation language, or DML commands. And basically those are equivalent to what we call CRUD. All right. If you do a drop, or if you do an alter, or you do I can't remember what the C stands for. Might be change. But those are data definition language. Those play with the schema. All right. Now, one thing, and I didn't even try this, but this should work, is, yeah, we can show our tables, but we should be able to now say describe users. And you can see in here, we now see our schema. All right. And it does look like the only thing that it's set, yeah, we can drag these around if we want to or need to do that. All right, so you can make it wider. But you can see the schema of that table now. And I realize it doesn't show very well on mine, but it should on yours. All right, that's why I try to make this big right here.
You have that window like right here.
All I did was come down here. I mean this.
Yeah.
I just drag. You can drag it up and down.
Where?
Right on the top, where that line is, right here.
Oh, right here.
Yeah. You might have to work. Well, let's see. I mean, like mine's right here. It looks like there's. There, you got it.
Mm-hmm. No, that's doing the action output.
Oh, you mean? Are you talking about this thing down here, the output window, or
No,
what?
I have the output window, but I don't have.
You don't have that one.
Right above it.
All right. Go to View Panels. You don't have any of those checked?
It just says hide.
All right. The other thing you might want to try doing is put your mouse. Let's see. That's down here. I'm just wondering if these two things are kind of together right now. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's not there.
Is it?
You can try. I was going to say that thing would do anything. Well, I'll try taking a look at it during the break. I'm not sure what it is. Okay. All right. So we now have the schema set up for our table. Okay. So we're going to first put in just one row. So I'm going down to where he's got the insert row record, and I'm going to change it from what he's got. And what I mean by that is he's got it wrapping, no wrapping. So I'm going to come in here and do it so it looks nicer. Now, you may or may not remember this, but this again is the syntax for this. So mine's going to look really ugly because I'm going to put it on a lot of lines. So I'm going to knock the size of this way down. All right. So insert into users, and you've got all of your names, all of your field names right there, except you do not put in the ID. Everybody hear that? Because again, we set it up as an auto increment. I'll tell you what, I can probably fit a few of these on one line. So it doesn't matter with what I'm doing right now if you put it on one line, if you put it on multiple lines. That doesn't really mean anything. I was going to put it on multiple lines, but unless I really change the size of my font here, it's not, the stuff's going to be off the screen. All right. So after values, again, using a parenthesis here. So Brad is going to be the first name. Traversy is going to be in this case, because we used his name. So Traversy is going to be the last name. Oops. Brad@gmail.com is the email address. 123456 is the password. Massachusetts is the location. Development is the department. 1, meaning he is an administrator. All right. And then finally, that now that's in there. So that's everything. All right. Now, a couple things. Again, I just want you to remember this. Put single quotes in, not double quotes. I've had people tell me, oh, I use double quotes and they worked. They may not always work. Single quotes work here. But it's insert into followed by the name of the table. If you look up on the screen, here's the beginning one for that, okay, and here's the ending one. Then you list all the field names for which you're putting in values. So first name Brad, last name Traversy, etc. All right, and all of that again is in parentheses. Then you use the word values and you start up another paren. That paren starts here, and as you can see, it ends right there. All right, and then we've got our different values in. So if I put in all of that stuff, and I again click the lightning bolt, all right, notice I see down here, and it's green, and that's good. All right, so I'm going to come back up here, and I'm going to highlight it all and remove that. Now I should be able to type select star from users. And again, Angie, it appears yours isn't showing. We'll have to see if we can figure out why. But if you look here, there it is. Any question on that? I mean, you might, yeah, this is stupid. Well, again, it's been a few months since you've had this stuff. All right. So the next thing that he's got in here is he goes in and he adds about 5 more users with this command right here. So I'm going to grab that thing and I'm just going to throw it in. But you should be able to, the big thing to see is if you stop for a second and look here, notice right there. That's Fred Smith. So in other words, you put a comma after each listing. All right. And then you start a whole new set of parentheses. So that is, whoops, that is Sarah Watson. That is Will Jackson. That is Paula Johnson. And that is Tom Spears. All right. So you've got to follow the correct syntax is what I'm saying. So I'm just going to grab all of it, copy it to the clipboard, go back into here, make sure that this is all clear out here, and paste it in. It looks really bad, but it should be working. I tried it earlier and it worked with no problem. Click the lightning bolt. And again, now if I do my select star from users, I should now have 6 users in here. And you see right there, or 5, maybe it's 5, I don't remember. But it is 6, but they're right there. All right. And again, if you're saying if this is all review, yeah, it's supposed to be. All right. All right. So we did the select. Remember that if you select star, you get everything, but you can select any combination. I'm not going to do this right now. All right, but we could, if we wanted to, say select just the first name and the last name, etc. All right. Hopefully you remember the where clause. All right. And you'll notice that, remember this was a tiny int field. So as we often do in many programming languages, we don't use the quotes there. All right. And so if we wanted only salespeople from Massachusetts, we could put in this one. All right, so I'm just going to grab that one, and you'll notice if I look here, well, there's 2 salespeople, and they're both from Massachusetts, right? So it should give me both of those, the way it looks. And if I run this, sure enough, I get both those people. All right. Now, to make this a little easier to read, again, I could have put it on multiple lines like that. Okay. Now, a couple things. Notice it doesn't matter here. You can put in blank spaces. He left them out. Sometimes he uses them, but that'll work just fine. Putting in some blank spaces here and here, etc. Also remember, that should return nobody, right? Because everybody in there was sales. That isn't maybe true. Maybe there are other Massachusetts people, but I'm going to look. All right, I guess he is. Brad Traversy, development. So his location is Massachusetts, but his department is not sales. All right. All right. Want to quickly run through the Crud operations here, we've already done the insert. So we've done the C or create. We've already done the R for read, which is our select statement. All right, but let's update. And I'm going to use the one that he's got here. So the command looks like this. Again, I'm going to put it on multiple lines. One thing about this, and hopefully you know this, all right, if I'm going to update a user and I'm going to use a where condition, I should be using my primary key, because then I'm always assured I'm only going to be updating one user unless I put in a wrong primary key, and then it'll be no users. But I'd rather update. Remember, if I leave this off, I'm not going to, but if I leave that off, now everyone will have an email of Freddie@gmail.com. All right. So putting that in and running that, how do I know whether or not it worked? Again, I'll do another select star from users. And I could say where ID = 2 and just bring that person up, but you'll notice it's now Freddie@gmail.com. All right, you also notice we really don't need the semicolon at the end. I'm just used to putting it there, but it works just fine without it. All right. So that's we've already done the C for create. We've done the R for read. We've done the U for update. All right. So let's try putting ourselves in. All right. So insert into users. Then in parentheses, we need all the fields. So first name, last name, email, password. And again, I'm just breaking it up a little bit so you can all read it. Location, department, is admin, and register date. All right, after all that, the word values, then another set of parentheses, and again, I'm just putting myself in. So Jeff Scott, JP Scott at rankin.edu. Password, I'm just going to put 123. I know that's a stupid password, but it's fine. What was left? Location, I'll put in Wentzville. Department, I'll put down programming, I don't know. Is admin, I'll put a 1, and I'll put now in there. Oops. For that. I thought it was now, maybe it doesn't look like it liked it, but we'll see. If it doesn't work, then I screwed up someplace. All right. Now it's giving me an X right here, so it is saying it doesn't like something. So how did he put his in? Because I want to do it correctly. Now, didn't I put it in parens? Now, paren. It's telling me it doesn't like something that's in here because I'm getting that thing, but I'm going to try it anyway and see what happens. All right, error code. You have an error in your SQL syntax. All right, it says check for the right syntax to use near this. Oh, see that? I didn't put a comma there. See that? I'd like to say, hey, I did it on purpose to show you what happened. No, I screwed up. All right. Each field has to be comma separated. So now when I put this in, and I'll tell you what, before we run this, if you look on the screen here, grab this. I'm going to copy all of this to the clipboard, and there's a reason I'm having to do this. So I'm copying it to the clipboard. Now I'm going to run this. All right. And if I come in here now and I do my select star from users, and I run it, you can see that I'm in there and I'm number 7. There shouldn't be any surprise there, right? Okay, but I'm going to remove me. So I'm going to do a delete from users. Again, I should be using the ID here, where ID equals 7. Make sense? All right, and I'm going to run this. Looks like it worked okay, so I'm going to come back and do another select star from users, and I should be gone now, and you can see that I am. All right, now I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to paste that back in again. All right, again, there was a reason for this, and I've mentioned this to you in other classes, but I want to say it again, and that is, okay, so now I saved it, put it in, but notice if I come back again and I do another select star from users and I run this, my ID is now 8. 7 is gone. I know people who develop in this, and because I've got like a pocket right now because I removed that one, and they say, well, I can just manually add it in. Don't do that. All right. In fact, a lot of times what will happen is, let's say I was working for this company and now I no longer am. All right. What they'll do is, rather than remove you like this, before they do that, they'll write everything out to a log file someplace, just in case something happens, or if they hire me back. All right. Because then they've got all that information. All right. Any questions on any of that? Make sense? Good. Adding a new column. All right. There is a way to do this where you can add a new column and talk about where it goes. In other words, you can place it. So you can, there is like it says there's an add and there's a modify. Well, I'm going to do it because he did this wrong on purpose to begin with. So he's adding to the users table. He's adding a new column called age. He's purposely incorrectly making it a varchar. So it's a string. You wouldn't want that, but I'm going to copy his command. And again, I'm going to paste it in here and run this. And now what you'll notice, if I'm not sure if it worked or not, I can still come in and do another select star from users. But now notice it's got a column at the end called age, and they're all none because I haven't, or null rather, because I haven't put any ages in. Now, something kind of cool about this, just so you can see this. All right, because I don't think when we did this kind of stuff in SQL Server, I don't think you can do that. Notice if I take my mouse and I put it in here, and I double click, I can put in ages. I'm just stepping them up by 5 every time. You don't have to put in any age you want. It doesn't matter. All right. Now, when I do this, look on the screen, please, because I know it's kind of hard, but you got to look at my screen and yours. You see over here where it says apply? You've got a button down there that says apply. You click that, and it shows you the actual query that you're about to run, or the series of queries in this case. And you click apply again. Now it's been changed. So I can click finish. And now if I go back and I'm going to do another select star from users and I run it again, now those ages are all in there. So I have permanently changed them. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. Now I probably shouldn't have done it. Should have done this other command first, but we'll see. This is an altered table. So what we're saying is to take what's in there in that H column and change it from what it currently is, which is a varchar 3, to an int 3. All right. Technically, then, that means that any age that you put in there, you can put an age in there up to 999. All right. But there are something that are called check constraints that you can run on that. Now, one thing about this, I'm going to run the command, and I think it worked. All right. I'm looking down here for where I had all those, or it was showing me all my stuff, and it's not anymore, but I'm not worried about it. But I'm going to come back in here, and again, I'm going to type in exactly what we had before. Select star from users. All right, and it should still work, and those should be now numbers rather than strings or varchars, whatever you want to call them. But the point is this: if you're going to do something like this, this is actually, it'll automatically add that as no. But if you look up on the screen, if you say, hey, you know what? I was wrong. I made it non-numeric. It should be numeric. You want to make changes like that before you put the data in, not after you put the data in, because that's a real easy way to break a database. All right. Now, you might remember or may not remember this, but let's do this. And let's not, not going to order it by last name. I'm going to order it by age. So I'm going to come in here and say, select star from users, order by age. Look up on the screen, please. You can say either age or age ASC. Remember that ASC is the default. So when I do this, they already were in ascending order. So I'm going to change this, and I'm going to put at the end DESC for descending order. All right, and when I run that, you can see how it changes. All right, questions on that? Again, ascending is the default. All right, so you don't have to put it in, although you can. All right, and DESC you do have to put in. All right, concatenate. So what are they doing here? Couple things. First of all, they've changed this a little bit over time, and what I mean is, this is going, concat is going to create a brand new column called name. All right, and it's going to take the first name and it's going to concatenate to that a blank space, and it's going to concatenate to that of the last name. You have to give it a name. Now, I'm not sure, but it used to be, at least, you didn't have to put the word as in there. You could just say name, but most people put it in anyway. So this should give everyone's first name, last name, and department. Does that make sense? All right, so let's try it and see if it works. Put it over a couple lines so that it reads a little better. All right, and run it, and you can see what I have right now. I can still come in if I want to do this, if you look on the screen, and I can still say something like order by department if I want to. All right. Now, the thing about ordering it by name, since I've combined those into one, it probably, it's going to put the B for Brad first, then probably the J. We'll try it, but I believe at least. So I'm going to put I'll put department, comma, name. All right, and I'll run it. So there's the departments. All right, and in this case, it is correct, but I think that if I say order by name, just by name, I don't think it's going to give me what I want. All right, because it's doing it based on the letter that's right here, the first letter. And I don't think, well, I don't know. Let's try this. Can I still do it by order by last name? I don't know if it'll take that or not. Jackson, Johnson, Scott, Smith. It looks like it did. So even though I concatenated them, it's in the right order. See that? If I had two people with the same last name, there's a Jackson and a Johnson here, but if they were both Jackson, I could do comma first name if I wanted to. All right. Again, if I want distinct, what does that do? Well, right now, let's do this. Let's do it twice. So I'm going to type in here, select location from users. And it gives me the city everyone is located in. You can see them. And you can see we have repeats. New York is in there twice. Massachusetts is in there twice. So if I say the word distinct here, and then in parentheses, I put location, and I run it again, now you'll notice I only have 4 listed. All right. And there's even other stuff I can add onto here. I should be able to say, for example, count. And then this whole thing has got to be in parens. So this says how many distinct locations do I have? All right. If I run that, it says 4. So that's a couple of the aggregate functions, both the distinct function and the count function. Does that make sense? All right. Now, I don't know why you'd want to do these things, but I can come in here and I can say min age. So if I wanted the smallest age that was in here, in fact, maybe I want the person's name too. I think it'll take this. Let's try first name, last name, and min age from users. So the youngest one is Brad Traversy, who's 20. As you'd probably guess, I win for oldest. All right. So there, oh, it doesn't take that. So it's just showing the first name and the first last name. See that? All right. But if I just do change this to max age, it should come in and say 64, and it does. All right. So those are some of the aggregate functions. If I wanted to know the sum of all ages, don't know why I'd want to do that, but if I wanted to, I could run the sum command, and it says 259, and there's 7 people, so the average age is what, about 35, something like that. I should be able to come in here and say AVG, age, and it's 37. Okay, I was close. All right. So those are your major aggregate functions. Remember this, if I want to find everybody who's between 20 and 25, there's 2 ways of doing this. This is the good way. Select star. I like to break mine up like this. Like that. So that says show me all users that are between, so that means greater than or equal to 20 and less than or equal to 25. Does that make sense? All right, and that's what it should show me. I could, if I wanted to, there's 2 people in here. If I wanted to, I could go in and change that, not to show everything. I could just show the first name and the last name or whatever. The other way to write this is I can do this, but I cannot do this. This should give me an error. I've got to say age less than or equal to. That should work with no problem. I should get the same thing I got before. All right. Now, if I wanted everybody who was in either sales or in programming, I could do it 2 ways. Let's do it the bad way first. So I could say where department equals sales, in fact, it's all lowercase, or department equals programming. All right. So what is that going to show me? Well, sales, programming, right? And notice that P, it was not case sensitive. All right. Now, the better way of doing that is to say in, which is a keyword, and then say here, I think it'll take a single or a double quote in this case. Oops. Sales, comma, programming. And the results should be exactly the same here as they are right now. And you'll notice that they are. All right. All right. Like is pattern matching. The only thing he shows there is the % sign, which is 0 or more. All right. If you want exactly 1 character, it's an underscore. So for instance, if I typed in D_D, it would match dad or dud or dod or DFD, etc. All right. This right now would match anything. D followed by 0 or more characters. This would be dev by 0 or more characters. So if I grab that one, all right, that should find development. I think one was development and one was design, but we'll see. Development and design. So again, if I wanted to, I could do this and I could say order by department if I wanted to do that. All right. So why would I want to do that? Because now I've got my design people together and I've got my development people together. Now, when you look here under the development, you'll notice Traversy came before Jackson. Why? Because Traversy has got a lower ID. So if I wanted to make sure that if I had two people in the same department, then I might put last name, first name. Okay? And remember, it goes from a major to minor order. So the first one that would be done would be by department. All right, then if you had ties, it would go by last name. If you still had ties, it would go by first name. So that changed the order right here. So now I've got Jackson first and then Traversy. All right, okay. Indexes, you can create an index on any field. Again, you use indexes, all right, and the reason that you use indices, if you want to call them that, the reason you use those is they make what happens behind the scenes when you're doing queries faster. Now, the problem with indexes is people hear that because I've had this happen. Oh, I got 15 fields in this table. I'm going to make about 30 indexes, one on each field and one on every combination I can think of. Well, that actually slows it down when you get too many indexes because those indexes have to constantly be updated, all right, and made sure that they're correct. All right, it is one. It may not seem like it, but it's been long enough already. So let's take a break and come back at 1:15, please. Like I said, hopefully this is a lot of review and you're like, yeah, I remember all this stuff. That's good.